Aw man, it's about time we get into this unholy abomination of an archetype. And with the end of Season 2 of Reigns having long since aired, and Season 3 taking over, seemingly nearing its own end, now is the perfect time to talk about the Hydradrives. Okay, maybe it would have been better like 2 months ago, but give me a break, I was sick. Hydradrives are a primarily Earth Cyberse archetype that were the main deck of Bowman and Haru, a pair of secondary AI antagonists in Season 2 of Reigns, who were originally servants to the Light Ignis, Lightning, before Bowman absorbed 5 out of the 6 Ignis and Haru became the main antagonist. Catch all that? I'd say watch the show, but the best parts of it are just the dub, not caring.
The only thing brave about you is that you're still willing to dab in public.
Made up of 7 main deck monsters, a bunch of spells and traps, and a crap ton of link monsters, all of ranging quality, this deck has been bloated for all the wrong reasons, given Bowman has had a grand total of 6 duels, and each duel gave him new toys to play with that were usually discarded at the start of the next duel. His entire deck is based on the same writing problem that plagued Merrick's Egyptian God card, where Ra would just gain effects in every single duel and eventually became so bloated that reading it gives you points at your school's book fair. You got everything from attribute manipulation, to control, to stun, and then you got some of Bowman's cards that involve dice rolls, like he's trying to practice going first in locals to get off a Nurse Burn FTK.
The fuck happened to your eyes?
However, the attribute stun playstyle, practically the main part of his deck as a whole, has one teeny tiny error that holds it back entirely. That error being that Bowman has nothing in his deck for facing light and dark monsters. That's right, he only has stun effects for fire, water, wind, and earth, meaning Hydradrives are only useful in specific duels against those attribute-based decks, which made up 4 of the 6 Ignis in Reigns. The other 2 being Lightning, who ran Armatos Legio, and AI, who had Playmaker, and they were both wise enough to have multiple attributes of main deck monsters and dark attribute ace monsters, hilariously enough. Hell, Bowman's win-loss record has only 2 wins out of 6 duels in it, which were against Blue Maiden Owie, which doesn't count, and Soul Burner, and no joke, it takes a lot for Soul Burner to be taken down considering he's just straight up running a deck that went all the way to Worlds. And won Worlds. And simultaneously won Dragon Duel Worlds. Let's be real here, as everyone knows the power ceiling of Hunter-style decks like Mech Lords and 5Ds, and the Ally of Justice in real life. To start, let's cover the most recurring monster in Bowman's deck, and the monster that held the honor of the only monster Percy was able to code for a very, very long time. Hydradrive Booster is a level 1 Earth Cyberse monster with the following effect. If there are no monsters in the main monster zones, you can special summon this card from your hand. So, yeah, all around a fairly decent monster. Just in general, a nice first turn option that becomes a vanilla if there are monsters in your main monster zones. Or your opponents. Well, at least, you know, Bowman could summon all 3 of them in a turn by linking one away, and then special summoning the second, and then you normal summon the third. Whew, that's a nice poker hand you got there. All around a solid enough monster, though it is one of your only main deck choices when making the deck on Percy, or in general. The reason will be shown with the next card coming up ahead, but yeah, nothing else much to say here as it's just a link fodder monster. Run 3. Covered Hydradrive is the next monster and is a level 1 Earth Cyberse monster with the following effect. When your opponent takes battle damage, you can special summon this card from your hand in attack position. Cannot be destroyed by battle. While another Hydradrive monster is on the field, you take no battle damage. Once per turn during your standby phase, destroy all Hydradrive link monsters you control. During your opponent's turn, quick effect, you can discard 1 card. Your opponent can attack with only 1 monster during each battle phase this turn. Covered is at the very least a decent fodder monster for links, but in general a terrible monster attempting to wall for you with battle protection, a Dark Door effect that makes you go minus, and the slight problem that it nukes every play you had last turn during the standby phase. Sure, you link it away in main phase too, but have you ever considered that Gnome material has a Raigeki taped onto it now? Also, this brings up that detail I need to get out there about this archetype before moving on. Covered is one of the many monsters from the Hydradrive main deck that either had no defense, no level, or no attribute shown in the anime, nor told to the audience. Because of this, Percy legit cannot code these main deck monsters into the game, as Percy is normally focused on accuracy of a card and its effects. So now it's left to fan interpretations on Dueling Book if you want to make a complete Hydradrive deck. Hence why we're using fan-made proxies over our own, in case you were curious. Just needed to bring this up because information on this is potentially faulty, as it is straight up unknown. Make them all divine if you want, it's exactly as accurate as saying they're Earth. Break Hydradrive is also a level 1 Earth Cyberse monster with the following effects. If your opponent activates a card or effect that tributes a monster's while you control a Hydradrive monster, quick effect, you can send this card from your hand to the graveyard, negate the activation, and if you do, Ukazi the opponent. If a Hydradrive monster's is special summoned to your field while this card's in your graveyard, you can special summon this card, but banish it when it leaves the field. Break is a decent lair counter, but not by much sadly in theory given you get a hand trap that's highly specific in its use. It doesn't work on kaijus either, in case anyone wanted to make that case for this thing. Otherwise, it's fine for linking, but that's really all it is. Also, another side note, because this archetype loves those, this card had all its stats and stuff shown, and yet it's unable to be coded because of the tribute effect. So there you go, people who are gonna bring it up in the comments. How would you fix the age-old question of Stormforth versus Kaiser Coliseum rolled into a hand trap and smoked by a man that has the chin the size of your mother? Hydradrive Mutation is another level 1 Earth Cyburst monster with the following effects. If this card is in your hand, quick effect, you can target one face-up continuous trap you control, return it to the hand, and if you do, special summon this card. Then you can set one continuous trap from your hand. It can be activated this turn. You can target one face-up monster on the field, this card's attribute becomes that monster's. Okay, this is actually a pretty solid main deck monster, I can't even lie on that. Mutation is solid, given you can effectively reset floodgates to the field for a free special summon. For example, bounce back that anti-spell for a summon, reset it, you can use it on the same turn, but also you can use all your spells and stuff. It's like turning off vanities for a turn all over again, except you get the vanities back for your opponent. Not to mention the attributed change effect is... Actually, no, exactly, not to mention, it's completely worthless. It's your only way to get anything for light and dark, but only if the links took any Hydradrive monster, or if it gave any Hydradrive the attribute of the target. Sadly, it does not, so that effect is wasted and feels more like a sure, why not sort of addition. It's like if Boral Sword couldn't be targeted by opponent's card effects during main phase 2 like a reverse Leo. It would make the card objectively better, but it would make damn near zero impact. Also, this card has a full proxy, but that proxy is too damn small, meaning not all of its effects can fully be read, and thus, rip another monster for the main deck. That is 3 cuts out of 4 monsters so far. Hydradrive Bringer is, as well, a level 1 Earth Cyburst monster with the following effects. When it's summoned, add a Hydradrive monster from your graveyard to your hand. Back to the bland, but generally good. As here, we have a by-the-numbers recycling effect that doesn't really help much aside from recycling Mutation multiple times. As well, the specifics here are kinda weird, given the Wikia says it's by summon, but most fan proxies have it as normal summon. Let's do what we do with most things and assume the fans are wrong. An effect like this that isn't once per turn is bound to be nutty, but surprisingly, Mutation is just about the only card that really can be abused with this. The rest of the monsters can't really be spammed out as easily, and looping this thing is pretty difficult in Hydradrive deck, as Reborns are few and far between. Maybe this is the card that breaks them as an engine, but at that point you've got like 3 of the 40 cards, and I still feel confident in saying that this deck fundamentally doesn't work. Hydradrive Agent is a level... Okay, back it up. I see 4 too many stars on this thing. There are way too many stars. There's supposed to be 1. Okay, it's level 5, whatever. Level 5 Earth Cyburst monster with the following effects. When this card is tribute summoned, you can special summon a Hydradrive monster from your graveyard. If the summoned monster is a Link monster, draw 1 card. Agent's the only non-level 1 in the main deck, and it's a tribute to boot? We're a field spell away from this being a bad hidden arsenal archetype. We've already got the attribute changing. Free revival on tribute summon is neat, plus a draw if you revive a Link, which is also neat. But it's really not too good. How do I put this? You need to tribute summon it! It could be good with Balancer Lord or Signet Optimize, but even then this is more of a justification than a combo. What's especially bad, though, is that one of their links specifically needs a level 5 or higher Hydradrive, meaning you need Agent for it, and we'll get to that when we get to that. Best part is that we don't even know Agent's level, and the assumption that it's a high level because of said link, so imagine if it's just dead-ass level 7. Or 9. Or 11, for that matter. Make that Sky Palace Babylon. Who knows? The final main deck monster is Hydradrive Element, who is... Okay, it's another level 1 Earth Cyburst, with the following effects. If this card is sent to the graveyard as link material, you can target a face-up monster on the field and declare 1 attribute. It becomes that attribute until the end phase. The final Hydradrive, and all it does is alter the attribute of a monster. Oh, that's really interesting. Please do tell me. I am quaking in my boots. This effect, as well, is only used when he makes the big bad in the final duel, Bowman does. Trust me, I have some pretty choice words about him when we get there. Though, that aside, this guy was added to Percy recently, so the deck exists, right? God, it's like I'm reviewing a ghost. That was the main deck's final monster, and overall, this main deck is just a bland mix of extra deck spam fodder that doesn't even do it well, with no real purposes of what else they can be used for aside from links, and they don't even do that well. Again, I talked about this with Battle Wasp, but knowing what the deck wants to do is a crucial factor when designing an archetype, and you should be able to get the general idea of it from the monsters alone. All I get from Hydradrives thus far is that they have a handful of spam and a handful of gimmicks, and then some protection, and otherwise the rest are just slow revival for fodder or slow protection. Mutation and Booster are the best, obviously, and I'd probably say the worst is Element, given how lacking a use it truly has. Also, as our final tally, that is 2 main decks on Percy out of 7 total monsters, due to Vrains not showing these important factors, the proxy being too small to read, or the effect just not working on the simulator. That's just brilliant. That's just genius. On to the extra deck, which is also missing some members on Percy, but who cares? I have pictures and text on screen. That's all we ever needed. To start, here is Flow Hydradrive, a Link 1 Wind Cyburst with 1000 attack and 1 Link arrow pointing down. That requires 1 Hydradrive monster to make, and has the following effect. Cannot be used as Link material for a Link 1 Link monster. If your opponent controls a Wind monster, this card can attack your opponent directly. If this card is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can special summon 1 Hydradrive token in defense position. Wonderful, I get a bigger Lagool for my troubles that's only really working if I'm facing Ritual Beasts, or decide to use the worst main deck monster to warp its attribute. Nothing to write home about, aside from the on destruction spawn a token effect. But tell me, did you enjoy that monster? Do you want it again multiple times in a row? Great news if that's the case, because it's the effect on 3 other Link 1 Hydradrive monsters of different attributes. Burn Hydradrive, Grand Hydradrive, and Coolant Hydradrive are all Link 1 Cyburst monster that are fire, earth, and water respectively, and all share the same effect, materials, and attack, and arrows as flow. Just altered to have the direct attack effect for their specific attribute, nothing more. Okay, do we see a connection here? Let's go back to the other Dynasty videos for a moment. Alchemy Beasts all had the same bad direct attacking effect, and were only different in attribute. Now, if you like this incredible example of Submarine Roid getting outclassed, you'll adore the fact that it's printed on the text of 6 cards! I repeat, this effect was copy-pasted onto 6 monsters, all of different attributes. Cook Pals didn't have enough attack to do anything. Royal Cook Pals King Burger, Knight Pasta, Prince Curry, Queen Omelette, and Princess Pudding, you fucking plagiarists, have the following effect. If a monster is normal or special summoned to your opponent's side of the field, you can target one of those monsters, return this card to the hand, and if you do, destroy that target. Once per turn, you can target 1 Royal Cook Pal monster you control. Double its original attack until the end of this turn. This card cannot attack the turn you activate this effect. Okay, so you're expected to spam out increasingly larger and larger monsters, never to be facilitated by in-archetype Pendulum support, and you think we're gonna have the time to tribute summon these things that get drop-kicked by a fucking mushroom man? Battle Wasps have no real identity whatsoever, and just became worse Blackwings upon their release into the real game anyway. Something you may have noticed with the main deck editions is that there appears to be no sense of cohesion between them. They can kind of swarm, almost never recur, deal enough damage to make you think they were mosquitoes and not wasps, and then there's a battle trap? No real strategy or win condition is possible so far, and yes, I know we're only looking at the main deck cards in a Synchro archetype, but look at something like Burning Abyss. Great effects that are easy to get off, and you get the idea immediately that they need to be sent to the graveyard, and cards that do that are good, even without looking into the myriad of extra deck cards that help them do this. If that's too good of a deck as an example, we can talk about Mech Lords. At least you know they all hate Synchros and want them to be absorbed as fast as possible, and the archetype gives you some ways of popping your own cards to summon your main boss monsters, albeit the options do leave a lot to be desired. This? No idea what the Synchros could do from only looking at the main deck. If I did a grading scale and I added cohesion as a category, it would be a solid F. Every member of the Knights of Hadway merely existed to summon links in boring and unrealistic ways and then go, haha, I have big number now. So that was the triple feature. To wrap this up, Helix. This set really needs better cards at the end of the day. Level 5s for links is not good by any means. Level 4 and lower monsters and better support cards would be highly appreciated, and fix their stupid generic FTK so they could actually be printed and not just see another card hit on the ban list immediately upon release. Dark Mummy. Like Helix, Dark Mummy needs more main deck monsters and maybe more ways to interact with the virus traps, maybe search them, do something on their own, that sort of deal. They're zombies, so they're solid in that regard. But when your type is the only thing you have going for you, you're more of a basic Tinder girl than a Yu-Gi-Oh! Archetype. Motorworms. No main deck monsters at all, and dependent on the kind of insect deck you build around them. Not to mention the absolute need for wormhole defense for the lockdown to even function, and it's not even searchable. Do you see my problem? This isn't the final boss of Vrains. This is the final boss of Dynasty of the Useless. Everything I've had to complain about, every deck I've covered, this has them beat by mere virtue of being all of them polymerized together and lit on fire. I've said all this before, and yet it's not like I just don't make the video saying it would be reductive and incredibly boring to watch, because they somehow crammed so much diarrhea into this deck, it has multiple facets of garbage I've never seen in an archetype. They are somehow so fucking bad that they're not only boring, but interesting, split right down the middle like a Gordian knot of every viral disease known to man and then 3 more. Okay, back to the ally of Lagul here. What is painful about this is that Bowman could have been solid only if the anime established him to have a Light Link 1 and or a Dark Link 1. At the very least have one of them, but you should have both. Then it would make sense for a gimmick as it would reach its full potential, especially since it's not a case of, oh, he needs that Ignis for the Link 1, or story reasons. That's not a valid defense. Applying this to a real-life situation, one could just side in and out the Link 1s on the fly for various duels, which means that on this deck's best day, you're restricted on your side deck. That's a new one. I've legitimately never heard of a deck that does that. Not even just one, but like 3 at any given time. And even through all this, we don't have Light and Dark Link 1s, so he has the option to cover only 4 of the 6 attributes, one of which he already covers as the default attribute for his links being Earth! They're all Earth! And result in his deck hunting only 2/3 of the main attributes. You were literally the main antagonist. Why is Vrains written by people who can't tell a nursery rhyme from Samuel Beckett? Why is it watched by people who can't tell the difference? I can't wait for the Vrains stands in the comments to tell me, the show is good because I relate to Playmaker to 0 emotions. Fuck off, the show's bad, your opinion's wrong. Move on. Twin Hydradrive Knight is a Link 2 Earth Cyberse with 1800 attack, markers pointing left and right, and requires 2 Hydradrive Link monsters, and also has the following effects. If this card is Link summoned, you can target up to 2 Hydradrive Link monsters used as Link material. This card is treated as having the same attributes as that target's. Monsters your opponent controls with the same attribute as this card have their effects negated. Twin Knight sets up the base of what Hydradrives appear to do in their playstyle. I know, finally. To stun attributes based on the materials used to make it. However, there is kind of a design flaw, if made real, that is hilarious, in that you could just use an attribute change card on the Link, like Scroll of Bewitchment. Watch Bowman cry as you turn his Fire and Wind Twin Knight into a water monster for your Element Magician beatdown deck. Running counters to Hydradrives is like constantly wearing a hazmat suit in case you get bitten by a radioactive wolf, but hey, I've never been against bullying. However, the big sin is that it needs, just Hydradrive links to make. So the main deck is only good for the Link 1s, and the Link 1s are only good for the Link 2s, and 3s, and 4s, and 5s. Linear playstyle, thy name is Gimmick Puppets. But ye have competition. Next is Bowman's first boss, and get used to this as he uses multiple boss monsters over time. Really sounds like a Jaden problem to me. Trident Hydradrive Lord, a Link 3 Earth Cyberse with 2300 attack, 3 markers going left, right, and down, needs 3 Hydradrive Link monsters to make, and has the following effects. If this card is Link summoned, you can target all Hydradrive Link monsters used as Link material. It gains those attributes. Monsters your opponent controls with the same attribute as this card's have their effects negated. Once per turn, quick effect, you can target one face-up monster your opponent controls. The attributes of all face-up monsters your opponent currently controls become the same as the targeted monsters until the end of this turn. Here we have the main sin of the Hydradrive links above the Link 1s. Other than like 1 or 2 of them, all of the Hydradrive links take exact numbers of Hydradrive Link monsters to make instead of taking 2+ monsters, or even 3+ monsters, meaning that Twin Knight serves legitimately no purpose for the deck aside from if you just don't feel like making this thing or you physically can't because your deck doesn't work. If Trident and the other Link 3 monsters took 2+ links, or 2+ Hydradrives to make, and the Link 4 monsters took the same but extended to 3+, then you could argue Twin Knight gets a spot or 2 to help make them, and you can use revival spells into Twin Knight to help make the links easier, because, spoiler, Twin Knight's the only Link 2. However, that's just not the case, given this archetype cannot benefit from one of the inherent benefits of links, that being the power of counting their link rating as materials for other Link monsters. As for Trident, it's a mediocre boss monster. The quick effect is alright. but when would your opponent be controlling monsters of multiple attributes unless you were facing a combo deck, and by the time you get them out, the opponent will have killed you 3 times over? Oh, yeah, just do this against Dragonides, you know? The best deck of the format right now. And they still negate you! As well, since the negator's only on field, graveyard effects are still live, so enjoy failing to stun Atlantean Orcust by making the Orcust into water monsters. Or just getting your ass handed to you by a certain deck that plays light and dark monsters and spams the board so hard that they gave us a meteor to deal with them. This lord is certainly not impressing me anytime soon. Our first Link 4 is the next boss monster for the deck, Rousing Hydradrive Monarch. A Link 4 Earth Cyburst with 3000 attack, firewall markers of up, down, left, right, BA, start. Wait, sorry, wrong Konami property. It takes 4 Hydradrive Link monsters to make and has the following effects. If this card is special summoned from the extra deck, place 4 Hydradrive counters on this card, and if you do, this card is also Water, Fire, and Wind attribute while face up on the field. If a player would normal or special summon monsters with the same attribute as this card, they must summon it in attack position. Okay. During the main phase, quick effect, you can remove 1 Hydradrive counter from this card. Roll a 6-sided die! If your opponent controls a face-up monster in their monster zone with an attribute that corresponds to the result, send as many of those monsters to the graveyard as possible, and if you do, inflict damage to your opponent equal to the number of monsters sent to the graveyard times 500. 1 is earth, 2 is water, 3 is fire, 4 is wind, 5 is light, 6 is dark. What is this? Are you out here trying to tell me that Dice Foon didn't have enough variants? That Arcana Force wasn't ball-busting enough? Rousing introduces Hydradrive to the use of counters, as well as a die effect out of nowhere, all for the sake of luck-based non-destruction nuke and burn quick effect? I feel like Bowman's trying to sell me a new car with all these gimmicks. Completely legitimate criticism aside, there is a big note that while it does count as 4 of the 6 attributes out of the gate, there's no attribute negation on Rousing, and it's instead just limiting the position those monsters can be summoned in, and making them default to attack position, when Link monsters already do that fundamentally. Yeah, Rousing's a hard pass from me, mate. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. With that, we enter the next wave of the extra deck, as we're basing them basically in phases of Bowman duels. And these are the ones that you will likely use over Trident and Rousing any day of the week. However, these two are hindered by a change in summoning condition that makes them very controversial to summon. Cubed Hydradrive Lord is a Link 3 Earth Cyburst with 2300 attack, same markers as the Trident Lord. Takes 3 Hydradrive Link monsters with the same attribute to make, and has the following effects. If this card is Link summoned, you can declare 2 attributes, Water, Fire, or Wind. It's also true as those attributes, same old, same old. Negate the effects of monsters with the same attributes as this card while your opponent controls them. When this card destroys a monster with the same attribute as this card by battle, you can activate this effect. It can attack again in a row. When it's sent to the graveyard as a Link material, draw 1 card. That's a nice and aggressive shift over what Trident does. The fact it lets you pick the other 2 attributes you want to cover and adds it onto its own Earth attribute is especially sweet, but let's not forget about the fact you won't ever summon this thing. Once again, it's exact numbers of Hydradrive Links, but also limited to the same attributes, which makes him damn near impossible and forces you to go on the Konami Facebook page begging for a 20-card extra deck. Though, imagine if it were 2+ links of the same attributes, as, again, it would have given Twin Knight a larger purpose for the deck instead of locking the knight in the corner forever alone. And that's still overly balancing the card. Otherwise, the multi-attack is nice and a decent draw effect, as well. I don't know why you'd use Cubed for a material, given it can only be treated as 1 material in its own archetype for a Link 3. Nothing more to say other than I'd run this over Trident any day, despite the conditions, since this actually does something. Next is the pinnacle of, come at me bro, I'm stacked! It's Tesseract Hydradrive Monarch. Monarch is a massive Link 4 Earth Cyburst with 3000 attack, has Borolo Dragon markers, takes 4 Hydradrive Link monsters with the same attribute to make, and has the following effects. If this card is special summoned, you can activate this effect. This card is also Water, Fire, and Wind while face up on the field, and get the effects of monsters with the same attribute as this card while your opponent controls them. Same old, same old. During your battle step, if this card battled this turn, make your opponent send 1 face-up monster they control with the same attribute as this card to the graveyard, their choice. And if they do, this card can attack an opponent's monster again in a row. If this card is in your graveyard, you can pay 1000 life points. Special summon this card, and if you do, double its attack, but banish it during the end phase. Second verse, same as the first. Tesseract is a vast improvement over Rousing with a highly aggressive stun effect and a powerful recurring effect made for slaying foes and thoughts alike. Not to mention the multi-attacking effect, which is just an even bigger spicy add-on that kind of makes Boral Sword have competition in the OTK game. Look at that. Tesseract was on Best Boss Monsters Part 2 for a reason. It's a really good card, no doubt about it. It's just the rest of the archetype does nothing to make this thing any less than a nuisance to summon. Actually, more of an impossibility. What's a level beyond impossibility? That's what this is. You wanna know what's sad? This thing was only used once against Aoi, because the writers hate her, and shat on her even though, you know, she got her new fancy Marincest deck, when Trickstars could have handled Bowman with ease. This will probably be the boss you shoot for, though, as given what the remainder we got to look at holds, it's not that good. It's really not that good. Paradox Hydradrive Atlas is a big boy Earth Cyberse Link 3 with arrows going up, down, and left, and has a whopping 0 attack. Takes 2+ Hydradrive monsters, including a level 5 or higher effect monster to make, meaning you have to use Agent. Oh, and I guess it has an effect too. If this card is special summoned, you can roll a 6-sided die, and this card becomes the attribute that corresponds to the result. 1 is Earth, 2 is Water, 3 is Fire, 4 is Wind, 5 is Light, and 6 is Dark. During your main phase, you can roll a 6-sided die. Special summon 1 Hydradrive Link monster from your extra deck with the same Link rating as the result to your zone this card points to. You can only use this effect of Paradox Hydradrive Atlas once per turn. Yeah, we have hard once per turns in Brains, isn't that kind of funny? Monsters this card points to become the same attribute as this card. Okay. While another monster with the same attribute as this card is on the field, this card is unaffected by your opponent's card effects. Also cannot be targeted for attacks. Turn that okay into a good. Yay. Finally, we have a somewhat easy way to summon monsters in Hydradrives, and it's based entirely on luck! Oh joy! That aside, Atlas has 0 attack, and all he does is just fart out a Hydradrive, which is pretty good. Despite it working as an easier way to summon the higher rated links, it's still based on luck, plus if it hits 6, it fizzles out since there are no Link 6 Hydradrives. Trust me, if there were, it would have made the thumbnail, and I would have abandoned any and all pretense and smashed it with red arrows, but that one picture of Jane that makes Yu-Gi-Oh! Clickbait thumbnails is sent past bad and into something you'd take out of context on Twitter. Yeah, like that. Oh, let's not forget that the summoning condition effectively makes you have to get off Agent's effect to make it, in the best scenario of tribute summoning for Agent, Revive Twin Knight, link into this. Otherwise, Atlas over here is just a big joke of a monster, given he's a monster screaming, "We fixed it, right?" Only used for the duel with Soul Burner with a protection effect that is so situational that Bowman needed a situational trap, just to make sure he didn't lose to Soul Burner's Pyro Phoenix. It stings how this thing was the cause of Soul Burner's only loss in the entire Season 2, and he lost because of a monster who looks like a shocked Pikachu meme. So what I'm saying in the end is that Atlas is the best Link we've seen so far, given it has a use for Twin Knight, and it can ignore the pain in summoning the other Links. But only if you roll dice well, so practice now, I guess. Now we get into the final stretch of these Links, thank God. This is the set of Link monsters Bowman used in his final duel with Playmaker, and yet we're reaching the pinnacle of stupidity this archetype holds. First off is Alteration Hydradrive, a Link 1 Earth Cyberse Link monster, with an arrow going bottom right. Takes 1 Hydradrive monster to make and has the following effects. Cannot be used as material for the Link summon of a Link 1 Link monster. Cannot be used as material for the Link summon of a Link 1 Link monster. If this card is Link summoned, you can target 1 Hydradrive Link monster you control. Special summon from your graveyard as many Hydradrive Link monsters as possible with a lower Link rating than the targeted monster to your main monster zones the targeted monster points to, but negate their effects if any, then destroy the targeted monster. You can only use this effect of Alteration Hydradrive once per turn. So out of nowhere, well, more for the sake of plot like all of other Bowman's monsters, Bowman gets a random Link 1 just for the sake of a pseudo soul charge for the deck. Given what Links we have seen and their markers, you're at max reviving 2 of them, even if Judgment Arrows is a factor because of the fact that it specifies Link monster zones. Oh yes, we'll be talking about the Link spell later, don't worry, it doesn't give me a hernia at all, why do you ask? It's alright otherwise, but given you're going to be using the elemental ones for the stuns more often than not, this one leads to 1 at most because the extra deck is tight. Thanks to this monster as well as Element, Bowman was able to fill his board in 5 Links, all of different attributes. As for what Alteration is building up towards. Yeah, there's no use stalling, here he is. Chimera Hydradrive Dragrid is a Link 5 Earth Cyberse monster with 4,000 attack, arrows going left, down, bottom right, and right. And it takes 5 Link monsters with different attributes to make, and has the following effects. If this card is special summoned from the extra deck, place 1 Hydradrive counter on this card. Once per turn, quick effect, you can remove 1 Hydradrive counter from this card, roll a 6-sided die, return this card to the extra deck. Yeah, all that work just went away. Then special summon 1 Draghead monster from the extra deck with the attribute that corresponds to the result. 1 is Earth, 2 is Water, 3 is Fire, 4 is Wind, 5 is Light, 6 is Dark. Okay, let's break it down real quick. Why is this thing the way it is? Is it nurture? Is it nature? Who do I have to blame for this? Granted, I do know the reason why it's like this. It's to be a big boss and try to make Bowman a threat. Doesn't do anything but be a big beat stick unless you use the effect, which makes it replace itself with a head under the chance of a dice roll. That would be fine if they made it to where there was a wide variety in these draghead monsters and what they are to do, and maybe they have their own bill and make sure you don't beat around and lose all your hard work, right? Right? That's what's happening, right? Right? You got that? Psych, bitch, you got two of them. Chimera, Hydradrive, Draghead, Flame, and Aqua are a pair of Link 5 Cyberse monsters with 4,000 attack each, and their fire and water attribute respectively, with the following markers and effects. Aqua has up right, up left, left, down left. If this card is special summoned, negate the effects of all monsters on the field, except those that are linked to this card. At the end of either player's turn, return this card to the extra deck and special summon a Chimera, Hydradrive, Dragrid from the extra deck. Flame, markers, up left, up right, right, down right. If this card is special summoned, destroy all monsters on the field except those that are linked to this card. At the end of either player's turn, return to the extra deck, summon a Chimera, Hydradrive, Dragrid from the extra deck. And both of these have no summoning material or requirement or anything, so you just summon them with Dragrid and that's it. For all the build-up, Chimera had the fact he wasted the lives of multiple NPCs and humans just to pull this thing and make it from the ether. All the potential this mini-theme could have opened, given Bowman, quick reminder, had 5 of the 6 Ignis inside of himself for the final battle, and they only made 2. They made 2 heads. I don't know why. It may have been a lack of time. God, people still watch this show? Even the Raiders gave up on this show! Are you gonna say that it's a lack of time and Konami and 4Kids or whoever you want to blame just didn't want it to work out? You think they're the victims here? It's such an utter garbage answer that Oscar the Grouch is tossing it out of his can going, ew. Here's a thought. If you're gonna make a concept like this, explore it to its logical end. Don't just toss it out there, make 2 different heads, drop it like that, and expect people to accept it. Because of this lack of drag heads other than a fire and a water one, you need to specifically roll a 2 or a 3 on Dragrid's dice roll, as the other 4 options do absolutely nothing. And then Dragrid is rendered null and void as he puts himself back into the extra deck for no benefit whatsoever. If only they made the 3 other drag heads for Earth, Windy, and Lightning at least. They don't need to make sense in the story. Give him a dark one too. It doesn't matter. I've stopped caring about Vrain's story after Season 1. Episode 1. Thank you. If you just gave him all the heads, it would actually be more than an empty series of disappointing beatsticks with on-summon effects in a disappointing archetype. The worst part is that if they decide to go the route of everything else in this deck, the most we'd ever get is a wind and an earth, considering light and dark just don't exist and we're going off Dragon Ruler logic. Only other way you could make them is through Atlas, and another card we'll see in a while. That's even more specific, given you need to roll a 5 on Atlas, or take 4,000 to 5,000 battle damage in 1 attack off of that other card we're going to be bringing up in a little bit. And my brain is already shutting down. Effect-wise, these 2 are not much to talk about. Aqua is skill drain for everything not pointing to all its up arrows and the left side, while Flame is a dark hole with mirrored markers and the same restriction. Hell, these effects are terrible, given if you put down the drag grid to the EMZ, like you likely will. You'll give the opponent 3 spaces to be safe from the effect, while hindering yourself. While they could theoretically be good disruption, it's all held back thanks to drag grid being terrible. But you know what? This entire series is so poorly done, it's just really sad. But there's even more! To make it even more pointless and stupid. If that wasn't enough, Bowman then uses Dragrid as an entire material for his true, real, I'm not kidding guys, this is my last one, I promise, don't tell my mom, Ace, which he got thanks to the lives of all of Link Vrains, and was only beat by Yusaku's own Link 5. Way to go for mass theoretical genocide there, Mr. Starchild. Enough stalling, here it is, the final Link monster of this nightmare of an archetype, the Perfect Link. And perfect has the biggest quotation marks the Microsoft Word can allow. That is Perfectron Hydradrive Dragon. Perfectron Hydradrive Dragon is a Link 5 Earth Cyberse with 0 attack, and the same markers as Dragrid, but it only takes 1+ Link monsters to make, and has the following effects. If this card is special summoned from the extra deck, you can place 5 Hydradrive counters on this card. This gains 1,000 attack for each one on it. You take no battle damage from attacks involving this card while it has a Hydradrive counter on it. If this card would be destroyed, you can remove 1 Hydradrive counter from this card instead. After damage calc, if this card battled, you can destroy as many monsters your opponent controls as possible, and if you do, inflict 300 damage to your opponent for each Hydradrive Link monster in your graveyard. Let me bring up old ground for a new reason. Why does this have to exist? Logically, if you had a monster this generic in your archetype, then here's a question. Why make literally anything else in Hydradrives other than this? It's like going to a Mexican restaurant and ordering chicken fingers as if despite the fact you can get anything else. Legit, the fact this thing is practically generic and not needing exact numbers makes this the best link by default! In an archetype that gave us link after link after link after link that was archetype locked, as well as locked to those specific numbers of materials, and even specific attributes of those materials. The final boss is something that is practically full generic, and by proxy puts into question the entirety of Bowman's deck as an archetype. You could just slam this thing into whatever you want because big dude, big arrows, Raigeki lol. Effect-wise, its use of counters only for attack stats and destruction protection is okay. Of course, is without any sense of attributes done the deck built to its peak with Tesseract, like this entire series from the final duel. It just screams that Konami and the anime staff realized giving Bowman Drag Grid and the Dragheads would extend beyond the arbitrary anime season limit after adding it in, so they scrapped the concept and made Perfectron all for the sake of distracting the audience from it like jingling keys in front of a toddler. Konami's just looking you dead in the face and saying, "Woo! Look at the shiny new dragon!" That's legit the only reason I can think of for Perfectron being so generic and easy to summon. It's the only reason they made this thing and forgot about everything else the archetype does. To make a threat with numbers bigger than Clock Dragon that got weaker thanks to Yusaku making Firewall Dragon Dark Fluid to ram into it multiple times in the turn and waste its counters. Granted, while the attacks Dark Fluid did were stylized to say the least, it does not take away from the fact that Perfectron is the best link in Hydradrives by a country mile, and yet it is hard to not believe its mere existence ruined an idea that had potential to grow. But, I mean, the idea was also pretty well elaborated on, and, they didn't do anything with it. Jesus, that was just the monsters! First is Hydradrive Accelerator, an equipped spell with the following effect. Equip only to a Hydradrive monster. Apply the following effects depending on the equipped monster's attribute. Earth. The equipped monster cannot be destroyed by battle. Water. The equipped monster is unaffected by your opponent's trap cards. Fire. The equipped monster is unaffected by your opponent's spell cards. The equipped monster is unaffected by your opponent's spell cards. Wind. Once per turn during either player's turn, if your opponent activates a card effect that targets a cards you control, other than the equipped monster, you can negate its activation. Okay, this is some decent protection, even though it's heavily reliant on the Link 1s used to make the monster on which you want to put this on. It can be great on Tesseract and Rousing, who count as all four regardless, but you'd probably be running Tesseract over Rousing, and also summoning either of them as a pipe dream. But yeah, immunity, spells, traps, battle, and being targeted is a sweet deal all around for a boss of Tesseract's caliber. Mess around with this one, but only if you can easily get out Rousing or Tesseract via cheating them out. So practice those dice rolls! Hydradrive Defragment is a quick play spell with the following effect. If a Hydradrive Link monster you control is destroyed by a card effect this turn, target a spell or trap your opponent controls, destroy it. You can banish this card from your graveyard, then target a Hydradrive spell in your graveyard, add it to your hand. And back we go to bad like clockwork. Defragment is just an overblown MST that's better as a target for foolish burial goods than anything else. Nothing much to say here, just run Typhoon, lol. Hydradrive Rebuild is a normal spell with the following effect. Target one Hydradrive monster you control, destroy it, and if the Hydradrive monster destroyed by this effect activates its effect in your graveyard this turn, special summon one Hydradrive monster from your graveyard, but it cannot attack, its effects are negated, and also it's destroyed during the end phase. Alright, this is the best spell that they really have. Rebuild is actually pretty solid, as it works to pop Flow, Burn, Coolant, and Grand, who all spawn tokens, and then they could just be restored. As well, this is not once per turn, so if you open one token card or a main deck monster in 3 of these, you could easily spam the board and link 1s and tokens to help make higher links. Granted, that's a pretty investing combo, but hey, we found something! Solid spell you should definitely run with Monster Reborn for max benefit. Maybe you can actually summon the best cards in this deck. You can't. Your dreams are fake and your god is dead. Speaking of tokens, here's Hydradrive Scabbard! A quick play spell with the following effect. Special summon one Hydradrive token. In defense position. When an opponent's monster declares a direct attack while this card and an Earth, Water, Fire, and Wind Hydradrive Link monsters are in your graveyard, you can banish this card from your graveyard, have any battle damage from that battle, also both players take any battle damage from that battle. Scabbard is solid as well, given it's a named token spawning spell for the set with no real downsides. However, the graveyard effect is, hilarious. It has such a bad activation condition of effectively needing all 4 basic Link monsters in the graveyard to even get this effect to trigger, and all that for having your battle damage and reflecting the other half to the opponent. Run it 3, don't rely on the graveyard effect, you'll probably get it off once and go, haha, that's funny. Property Flood is a normal spell with the following effect. Tribute 1 Hydradrive monster, then target 1 Hydradrive Link monster you control. Special summon Hydradrive Link monsters from your graveyard with the same attribute as the tributed monster, up to the targeted monster's Link rating, but they cannot attack. Their effects are negated, also they are destroyed during the end phase. Hard once per turn, you cannot special summon monsters the turn you activate this card except Hydradrive monsters. More decent revival in a deck that practically begs for it to make any good plays. It can help in making the higher links, but you can only really summon 1 or 2 given the link arrows in most Hydradrive links, and you aren't going to make Dragron. And you aren't going to make Dragrid or Perfectron just for this card. Hydradrive Impact is an equip spell with the following effect. Equip only to a Hydradrive Link monster. Must attack a Fable. If your opponent controls a monster, any battle damage the equipped monster inflicts to them by a direct attack is doubled. Sounds pretty conflicting, but you know what the Link ones do. Most of you probably forgot about him amid the flood of cards we went over, but let me say that this plus the next spell and a single trap I'll talk about soon enough were the only contributions of Haru into this archetype from his single duel with Blue Maiden, as he was there just for her to show off the new deck in Marincess. Let that sink in. Bowman's little brother only contributed 3 cards to the cesspool. At least he didn't play it all season like his brother, so he gets a gold star for that at least. Back to Impact, all this equipped spell serves for in this deck is a minor buff and damage from the Link ones and their direct attack effect, which were already buffed by Judgment Arrows, but I digress. Nothing else more than that, kind of lacking in other departments however, so run an OTK strategy that can't exist. Hydradrive Utilization is a normal spell with the following effect. Pay 500 life points, then target 1 Hydradrive monster in your graveyard. Banish it, and if you do, add 1 card with the same name as the banished monster from your deck to your hand. You can only activate 1 per turn. Congrats kids, this is your Rhoda. Card that forces you to pay 500 life points and banish the monster from the graveyard to get another copy of only itself. I have nothing more to say, it's just bad. Run Sign Up Mining and Lady Debug. They are Cyberse after all. Hydradrive Protection is a continuous spell with the following effect. Activate this card by targeting 1 Hydradrive Link monster you control, and 1 face-up spell/trap card in your spell and trap card zone. Your opponent cannot target those targeted cards with card effects. If this card leaves the field, the targeted cards cannot be destroyed by card effects. And we're back with the bland cards, yay! Protection is, ironically, a bad kind of protection, because targeting protection is not relevant at all. As well as okay destruction protection, but that's only if it dies. Not exactly the kind of protection this fragile archetype needs. It's like trying to protect a mirror with another mirror. You get shattered glass everywhere, stay far away from this card. The final spell for this deck is Hydradrive Re-Advent, a normal spell with the following effect. Target 1 Link monster in your graveyard with less attack than the monster your opponent controls with the highest attack. Special summon it, negate its effects, destroy it during the end phase. That's more revival for the deck. It's specific to the attack of the opponent's strongest monster, and it only revives Links, but hey, it's something. It's probably good. Bowman only used this damn thing in order to make Perfectron Dragon by reviving Dragrid when Cyberse Clock Dragon was buffed from his effect and killed Dragrid. Stick to the other revival in this deck, or just run 1 or 2. At least it's generic to a degree. I'd test it out. Oh, I'm sorry. You wanted me to talk about Judgment Arrows? You know, the Link 3 spell from hand? The one that's continuous, but also not? Ha! That's not a Hydradrive card, silly! And if we wanted to talk about all the jank garbage that shouldn't ever even be thought of by a custom card designer's mind, we could accomplish the same goal by asking a Yu-Gi-Oh fan why they think Yusei is a good character. Alright, I think I've alienated my audience enough. We can move on to the traps. Hydradrive Cycle is a continuous trap and has the following effect. Activate this card if your spell/trap cards are destroyed. Return 1 Hydradrive Link monster from your graveyard to the extra deck, then you can apply these effects. Draw cards equal to that Link monster's rating. Special summon 1 Hydradrive monster from your graveyard, but change its attack to 0. Once per turn during your main phase 1, you can pay 400 life points and declare 1 attribute. Not light or dark, ha, you thought, didn't you? Special summon 1 Hydradrive token to the turn player's field in defense position, and if you do, it becomes a declared attribute. Cycle has some solid potential in that it gives draws, recycling, and special summons from the graveyard in a single bundle. It's actually a really good trap card. It even has a token spawn effect like Generator, but be careful with it, because giving it to the opponent will mainly result in them using it for Link fodder to end you. Overall, it's better than Generator in some ways, but weaker in others, making this a pretty good card overall. Run Gale Dogger for the memes to draw 5 cards, I promise, it's a good idea. Property Flash is a continuous trap and has the following effect. Activate this card when you take battle damage. Place 1 property counter on this card for every 1,000 damage you took. Then end the battle phase. Once per turn, you can tribute 1 Hydradrive Link monster. Place a property counter on this card. You can send this card with a property counter to the graveyard. Special summon 1 Hydradrive Link monster from your extra deck with the same link rating as the number of property counters on this card. Only activate 1 per turn. Alright, we're back to the weird ones. I swear, this is my life now. Flash is such a meh battle fader effect with random counters that, I will admit, does indeed help in cheating out the Link monsters for plays. And ironically, you may end up wanting to focus getting counters on it to cheat out a Tesseract or a Dragrid instead of actually trying to play the game legitimately. Would you really want to have 1,000 battle damage per counter for the activation that fizzles out as soon as you hit 6 counters? Or roll a 6, or anything other than a 2 or 3 on Dragrid? Really situational, but in a theoretical Hydradrive deck, you could run a few copies and be secured somewhat. I'd run 3. Hydradrive Tolerance is a normal trap and has the following effect. When an opponent's monster declares an attack, target 1 Hydradrive Link monster in your graveyard that was destroyed and sent there this turn. Reduce any battle damage you would take from that battle by that monster's Link rating times 300. Also, you take no further battle or effect damage until the end phase. Tolerance is, bad. It's meh damage reduction based on a monster dying, and it's only good for the side effect. But even then, it's based on a Hydradrive Link dying in that turn and was sent to the graveyard. Flat out ignore this card. Hydradrive Nightmare is what I'm feeling right now. It's also a normal trap with the following effect. If your Hydradrive Link monster destroys an opponent's monster by battle, target 1 Hydradrive Link monster in your graveyard. Tribute a monster, and if you do, special summon that target, but negate its effects also destroyed during the end phase. Again, more poor attempts at giving the archetype Swarms a revival. It's just a basic revival trap that's based on destruction, and you have to tribute a monster for it. If only we had Lair Hydradrives to make that a benefit, but for the love of God, don't make Lair Hydrive. Run none of this. This was the trap Haru gave us. I'm gonna take that 1 star back. No gold star for you. Dice Logic is a continuous trap and has the following effect. Once per attack, when an opponent's monster declares an attack, you can target that attacking monster. Roll a 6-sided die and apply the result. Once per turn, if you activate this effect during a turn in which you applied another effect that rolls a die, and the result of this effect is 5 or lower, you can apply this effect as the result plus 1. 1, 3, or 5. Change the attack of the targeted monster and monsters with that same name to 0 until the end of this turn. 2, 4, or 6. The attack of the targeted monster and monsters with that same name becomes double their current attack until the end of this turn. If this face-up card in its owner's control is destroyed by an opponent's card effect, you can special summon 1 Hydradrive Link monster from your extra deck. Wow. Here I thought I was reading a goddamn Orgoth the Relentless support card before it mentioned Hydradrives at the end. Either way, it is just a terrible dice-based card and effect in general, with added cheats via the result plus 1 part, which is kinda cool. Yet only the odd rolls are decent for stopping them sick as hell Cypher plays. Not to mention the terrible wording, given it's hard to tell if this affects other dice cards or just itself. On top of that is the destruction to summon a Hydradrive Link from the extra deck that's also terrible. Because the moment your opponent sees this card, they'll ignore it like the plague or spin it with Unicorn. Ignore this card and, hey, good job, you already forgot what this does, didn't ya? Trust me, I don't blame you. The entire second sentence feels like it was written on ecstasy and Adderall combined to make the most hyper and least productive person the world has ever known. As for the final card, yes, we're at the final card, we have Hydradrive Gravity, a normal trap with the following effect. When an opponent's monster declares an attack while you control a Link monster in the extra monster zone, target that opponent's monster. Move it to your opponent's main monster zone your Link monster in the extra monster zone points to. If you would target a monster whose current attack is higher than its original attack with this card, you can activate this card from your hand. And we go out on a little sparkling firecracker dude. This was only used for Atlas to make it immune to attack targeting in one duel. That's all it was used for. Nothing more. Goodbye. End. I'm done here. Clock it out. Peace! And that's Hydradrives. What do I think about them? Well, what do you think I think about them? Hydradrives are just plain awful. It's as if the anime had a solid idea for an antagonist who used elemental counters for the protagonist and the Ignis, but they handled it in such a haphazard way it just made it flat out confusing and lackluster in the end. The biggest sins for Hydradrive are numerous, but if I had to boil them down, it would be a lack of any stun for light and dark, and the Link materials as a whole being ridiculous. Aside from a handful of monsters, most Hydradrive Links take exact numbers of archetypical Link monsters to make, the 2 of them needing the same attributes as well, and one needing different attributes for whatever reason. Exact materials can work with powerful effects to balance them out, but if they were going to put that as the limit, at least go for either exact materials or link monsters, and don't just throw down both to render the speed of the deck equivalent to that of molasses going uphill in the snow. This effectively makes a stopgap in the strategy, given your deck quickly becomes a single playstyle of spamming the Link 1 monsters the best you can, trying to revive those monsters multiple times over and over to meet those exact requirements. And don't get me started on how much wasted potential Chimera and the Dragheads had, because we'd be here forever and a day. And then you get a plethora of spells and traps trying to mix multiple effects like Revival, Token, Spell effects, and then we have a traffic accident. Of course, the only reason any of this BS worked against Owie and Soulburner in the first place was because they had to make Bowman the big bad this season despite having a pretty good antagonist already in the form of Lightning, sacrificing more of Owie's development that didn't exist, as well as making this Soulburner's only loss a loss equivalent to that of Glass Joe's only win in Punch-Out. In short, watch Series 7 and when it comes out, and watch more Dynasty the Useless! Bye!